Recently on Untold Stories of Hip Hop with Angie Martinez, A$AP Rocky revealed that he was locked up on Rikers Island at the age of 16. It turns out that he caught an attempted murder charge back in 2004 after almost killing a man during his trapping days in Harlem. At the time, Rocky was known for serving fiends and walking around with a lot of money. So on the day of the incident, an older man was targeting Rocky and tried pressing him. Rocky was able to finagle himself out the situation and ended up linking with his cousin afterwards. Later that night, they went to confront the man at his home, both strapped. This is when Rocky claimed that they only went to talk things out, but things went left when the man reached for a weapon and Rocky started letting off shots, hitting the man close range. The man later survived, but Rocky was hit with an attempted murder case and shipped to Rikers Island. Eventually, the case was dropped and he was hit with a less serious charge due to the fact that he was under the age of 17. French Montana once faced and beat a murder case at the very beginning of his rap career in the early 2000s. The incident took place on 133rd Street in the Bronx. Frenchie had went to a recording studio with a couple of people he thought he was cool with at the time, but behind his back they had already plotted to cut his career short that night. Finishing the studio session, Frenchie was making his way out the building when he was ambushed by two oppositions. This is when shots and a scuffle broke out, leaving one man dead and Frenchie with a hole in his head. He even went on Vlad TV to show the scar on his head from the headshot. After checking himself out the hospital, he came home to a warrant for his arrest. At first, he did the race and left New York, but was later extradited back to face his charges. Eventually, he beat his murder case due to the fact that there was little evidence that he had fired the shot that took the man out. The court determined that the other man that was there to ambush Frenchie accidentally shot his own mans during the scuffle, automatically freeing French and allowing him to continue his rap career. Gucci Mane caught a murder charge back in 2005 after detectives found the body of local rapper Pookie Lock buried in the woods near middle school in Atlanta, Georgia. Once he was accused in court, Gucci admitted guilt and claimed that he had no choice but to shoot the man in self-defense. It turns out that there was a $10,000 bounty on his chain and 4 men in all black came to collect it while Gucci was visiting a female. Due to the fact that there was multiple eyewitnesses backing his story, the judge had no choice but to drop the case and release Gucci, justifying the body he caught and buried. This soon became folklore in the community and the legend of the boogeyman of rap was birthed. Gucci went on to publicly implicate rapper Young Jeezy as the alleged brain behind the hit in interviews, as well as dissing him in tracks like Truth, where he tells Jeezy to go dig his partner up. In 1995, Snoop Dogg was in one of the most mainstream publicized murder trials in rap history. The same year he released his debut album, Doggy Style, is the same year he caught the charge that could have ended his rap career before it ever even started. It was 1993 and Snoop was 21 years old when he had a heated altercation with a rival set in LA. At first, they were able to separate without it getting too serious, but later that same day, Snoop and his bodyguard at the time ran into the same oppositions in broad daylight at a park. Witnesses revealed that a rival member named Philip tried to check Snoop, letting him know what territory they were at. That's when Snoop's bodyguard got defensive and let off multiple shots from inside Snoop's car. Snoop then hit the gas and fled the scene. They didn't end up turning themselves in until after presenting an award at the MTV VMAs. But eventually, with the help of Johnny Cochran, the same lawyer that got O.J. Simpson off on his murder case, he was able to convince the jury that it was all in self-defense and got all his charges dismissed. Boosie Badass is one of the only rappers to be placed on death row for a murder he didn't commit himself. Back in 2010, Boosie was accused of paying teen hitman Marlo Mike to shoot his baby mom's brother, Terry Boyd. He allegedly carried out the hit, shooting Terry through a window over some disrespect in Louisiana. Since the hit happened that night with no witnesses or DNA evidence, the prosecutors had the whole case hanging on 2 factors: a recorded jailhouse confession and telephone records from Marlo traced to Boosie before and after the hit. It also didn't help that 2 weeks after the murder, Marlo got a tattoo of an AK-47 with the phrase in quotes, "Yo Boosie, who's next?" on his stomach. Eventually, the case fell apart due to no hard evidence, and the jury found him not guilty, taking him off death row. Unfortunately for Boosie, he had just started an 8-year sentence for smuggling and selling large amounts of codeine, ecstasy, and coke, all from within the prison. In 2005, A.R. Ab faced a life sentence for the murder of Desmond Hawkins. The incident involved retired rapper Cassidy and happened outside his home in Philadelphia. Cassidy was also charged with murder for allegedly escalating the shootout and supplying the weapons. At the time, Ab was around Cassidy a lot as his enforcer, which was a problem for people that were used to pushing Cassidy around. So the night of the incident, Hawkins and his crew were out looking for Ab in retaliation for an altercation that took place earlier that day. They ended up going to Cassidy's house, knocking on his door. This is when Cassidy informed them that he was out back, basically causing the shootout to happen. This left A.R. Ab no choice but to strap up and get busy and go shot for shot with Hawkins and his crew. When the smoke cleared, Hawkins was left on the floor and 2 of his mans were left injured. A.R. Ab remained unscathed but now had a murder case on his hands. He ended up taking it to trial for 2 years and beat it, claiming it was self-defense. But unfortunately for Cassidy, he was found guilty for involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 11 months in prison for escalating the incident. In 2014, Albie Al was accused of throwing a teenager off a bridge into the Hudson River after getting shot by his cousin. He might have survived the shot if he didn't drown in the river, so for that he was charged in the first degree. Al went on Vlad TV to explain that he faced up to 100 years due to the strict gang laws in Jersey, so it was a big risk taking his case to trial, denying any plea deals. At first he got his bail posted by NFL player Kenny Britt, but was revoked after catching another charge unrelated to the pending murder case. At the end of trial, he was found not guilty and was acquitted on all charges. Unfortunately, today he's back in jail, facing 2 new attempted murder cases. Tutu G's beat a murder case back in 2017 after an altercation in Miami that left 1 man dead and 1 man injured. The Brooklyn rapper was down in Miami Beach with a couple of his associates for a performance. Things then went left when they kept bumping into a stranger's Buick trying to parallel park into a spot. The owner of the Buick and his friend both noticed and confronted them about the marks they left on their car. That's when Tutu G's driver allegedly yelled "Get back" before shooting both Philip and Elias, the Buick's owner, and his friend. Police quickly arrived, and that's when they both got back into their white BMW, fleeing the scene and leading officers in a high-speed chase that ended in a car crash. The driver then decided to go out in a bang and attempted to shoot it out with the police, but was immediately killed by one of the officers. Tutu G's then surrendered and was arrested and taken into custody. One of the survivors ended up testifying against him, saying he was the triggerman that left him injured and his man's dead. But somehow Tutu G's was able to convince the court that the victim was lying about what he thought he saw. Eventually, the judge determined that the driver was actually the triggerman and not Tutu G's, automatically acquitting him on all charges and setting him free. In 2016, NBA YoungBoy was snatched up by U.S. Marshals right before a performance in Texas and extradited back to Louisiana to face 2 attempted murder charges. YoungBoy was accused of being the triggerman in a drive-by alongside 3 of his teenage associates. He allegedly pulled up on a crowd of oppositions, got out the car, and let off multiple shots before getting back in and fleeing the scene. One of his associates was hit in the neck, and soon after, the driver crashed the car. That's when they all got out and ran off on foot before police ever arrived. At first, just the associate that was hit in the neck was charged, but eventually everyone involved was picked up one by one. In court, NBA YoungBoy was honest about the drive-by and pled out to a lesser charge of aggravated assault. The judge told him that he was fortunate that he had bad aim since no one he shot actually died. And for that, she sentenced him to a suspended 10-year term, meaning he will serve the 10 years outside of prison as long as he doesn't catch any new cases. In 2018, the baby beat a murder case just a few months before his career took off and went platinum. He was charged with the murder of 19-year-old Jalen Craig during an altercation inside of a Walmart. The baby claimed that he shot him in self-defense after he noticed Jalen reaching for a weapon. At the time of the incident, he was shopping with his 2 children and his baby's mom. Feeling like his whole family was at risk, he immediately pulled out his own weapon and fired on Jalen close range. He was later arrested, with prosecutors seeking a murder charge, but eventually the case fell apart and was dismissed due to a key witness not being available. Prosecutors settled with charging him with a misdemeanor for carrying a concealed weapon and ended up sentencing the baby to 12 months of unsupervised probation, allowing his career to blow up shortly after.